happy 10th anniversary to NN Light's Book Heaven. I am Heather McCollum, writer of Scottish historical romance and historical romantasy under a pen name Ellery Drake. And I am here to help celebrate by answering some interview questions. I'm so happy to be on here. Again, I write, mostly 16th century Scottish historical romance with brawny Highlanders and fiery heroines. And I also have just began a pen name, Ellery Drake, my first indie series, which is historical romantasy. So it's got some witchy vibes in there. So, question number 1. What was I doing 10 years ago in relation to my author writing career? Well, let's see. I was just getting back into writing after fighting off stage 2 ovarian cancer with 15 months of chemo and 2 years of recovery before I could wrap my head around writing happily ever afters again. So I was getting back into that, and I was working on my Highland Isles series, and as a romantasy writer, I was starting to think about my Dragonfly Chronicles series. So I had a couple of books. I had one series published with Entangled through a traditional publisher, and then I was getting ready to start a second series with them. So let's see, number 2, looking back on the past 10 years, how has my writing grown? Well, I mean, a lot happened after you survive something that potentially could kill you. It kind of changes everything. And I think I write stronger characters. I used to write very plot-driven stories, I think. And yes, I did a lot of characterization, but I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot from that, and about how important human interaction is, and supporting one another to help heal the soul and things like that. So I think that ends up going into my writing. I mean, for the technical things, like I don't put as much Scottish dialogue into my stories. There's no dunas in my stories now. You'll see a ye, a lass, a wee, but as far as trying to write out how they would have sound, I don't do that as much, because I want to make it easy for readers to dive into this story and not be worried about deciphering the words and the dialogue. I write tighter, faster paced books, I think, even faster now. My chapters are shorter, and that goes along with attention spans and things in this world that seems to be going very, very much faster every year. And so that I think is helpful. Even when I read a book now, if it's an older book, it seems like it takes too long for me to get into the story, which, I wouldn't have thought of 30 years ago. And I have visited Scotland a couple of times since then, and been able to explore the castles and touch them and really imagine what it was like to live there, and, smell that fresh grass and see the rolling hills. And I think that has made my stories even richer since in that time. And then question number 3, what are you doing now, and how many books have I published? Well, I have 29, my 29th Scottish historical romance is coming out in April, and I have published those Dragonfly Chronicles under Heather McCollum, but I got the rights back, so that's another 5. And then I had a paranormal contemporary trilogy that was young adult that I got the rights back, and I will be putting out again after I revise them, bring them up to this time period, and I'll put those back out under Ellery Drake as well. So, the math people there, 29 plus 5 plus 3. Anyways, so what am I doing now? Well, I am writing the 4th book in my Scottish historical series called The Brotherhood of Solway Moss. The first book is already out. That's The Highlanders' Wild Flame. And book number 2, which is The Highlanders' Fallen Angel, will be coming out the end of April. So my 3rd book which I think might be called The Highlanders Lady of the Loch and Sea, but that's with my editor. And then I'm working on the fourth one, which I'm still trying to figure out the title. It might be The Highlanders Wildflower, I think. Winter Wildflower is what I'm thinking. So I'm working on those. And then, of course, I am working on revising those 5 Ellery Drake historical romanticises. And that book, that series, it's so near and dear to my heart because it was one of the first books that I had ever worked on, which is why I'm revising them. There are 4 sisters who are hidden in time by their mother, to save them from these demons that are after her powers and her children. And so she gives each one of her daughters one of her magical powers and sends them to a different place in time. So the first book, Prophecy, which is here, takes place in 18th century Scotland, and her power is telepathy, so she can read minds, except for the heroes. Magic doesn't work on the soulmates in each of these books. So the second book is 10th century Denmark, and her magic is healing. The third book, and the second book is coming out the end of March. The third book will be Elizabethan. The fourth book will be Victorian era Egypt. And the fifth book is a surprise, and they all come back together to fight the demons on a temporal plane sort of thing. So those are my Ellery Drake, it's backwards, I guess. Ellery Drake, my historical romanticises, whereas my straight Scottish historical romances are under Heather McCollum, which this is the first book in that Brotherhood of Solway Moss series that I mentioned. And that's what I'm doing right now. So again, happy 10th anniversary, and thank you for having me on. This is Heather McCollum and Ellery Drake signing off.